Hello out there in Na'aleh land. We begin Hashem today, Parshat Beshalach. Very exciting Parsha. This year, as always, is L'Nishus Rachaleh Bas Chaim Sia Shalom the Lichtige Gan Eden. Parshat Beshalach, of course, is always very exciting for us. It's the harbinger of Tu B'Shvat, Parsha Shira, and everyone loves to sing, especially in the shower. And so we begin with our synopsis of the Parsha. Let's remember our mandate, which is to tell the story. You will not get the bends from this year, meaning you're not going to go too deep. It's only the story of the Parsha. And we begin. Now, my synopsis is basically culled from the Sefer Lilmod Ulamed. And here's the synopsis. When Bnei Yisrael left Mitzrayim, God did not lead them to Canaan by a direct route through the land of the Pelishtim. We'll learn about this. The most direct route would have been going to go up and around the Mediterranean, to go up north and traveling east along the bottom of the Mediterranean, but that would have encountered the lands of the Philistines. That was not the route they followed. Lest they encountered the hostile armies there that would come to regret their departure. The Jewish people would regret their departure because they leave Egypt only to encounter a fierce enemy on the way out of leaving Mitzrayim. Instead, the people journeyed in the opposite direction, led by a pillar of cloud by day and a pillar of fire by night. Moshe did not forget to take the remains of Yosef with him, as Yosef had been promised. The Bnei Yisrael had reached Etam, on the edge of the wilderness, when they were commanded to turn back and camp by the Red Sea. Now they're going backwards, as we'll learn. They're going forwards, escaping. Now they're told to turn around and go back towards the Yam Suf. And there Pharaoh would pursue them, thinking they were trapped in the wilderness. And this is going to be the great occasion for God to show the greatest miracle of all, when he provides them with their salvation. As soon as the Jewish people had left, Pharaoh regretted having let them go. He assembled his whole army, which consisted of many soldiers and chariots, and pursued the Bnei Yisrael. The Mitzrayim, the Egyptians, were soon at the heels of Bnei Yisrael, who panicked, and they complained bitterly to Moshe. And this is what they said. They panicked and they said, "It would have been better, much better, for us to serve in Egypt than to die in the wilderness." This is how they cried, this is how they bellyached. Better we would have continued slaving Mitzrayim than to die in the wilderness. However, Moshe assured them that God would once again fight for them. The guiding pillar of cloud moved to their rear, creating a veil of darkness that hindered the Egyptian advance. Moshe, at God's bidding, stretched out his hand over the Red Sea, or the Sea of Reed, and a strong east wind blew and divided the water. This enabled the Bnei Yisrael to cross the sea on dry land. The Mitzrayim followed them into the seabed, but were thrown into confusion by God. What happened? Their chariot wheels got stuck in the wet sand. Then Moshe stretched out his hand over the sea again. The waters began to flow over the Egyptian army, drowning the Egyptians and their animals. A song of triumph was sung by Moshe and the children of Israel, in which they praised God for God's infinite power in destroying the enemy. He would guide Bnei Yisrael safely into Canaan, whose inhabitants were terror-stricken upon hearing the Egyptian destruction. The people in Israel were like, they heard a steamroller was coming. And they're packing up everything, and they're getting duffel bags to quickly get out of there, because this army of Bnei Yisrael is coming. The same people that had made the Egyptians suffer 10 plagues, and not a splitting of the sea, they're totally terrified. The Jewish march continues southward through the wilderness of Shur, to a place called Marah. Marah means bitterness, and it's named because of its bitter waters. The people their mouths were parched with thirst, and they began to murmur against Moshe. He, in turn, was shown a tree which was then thrown into the waters, which made them sweet. The Bnei Yisrael refreshed themselves and then moved to the oasis of Elim. And they continue. They proceed inland. They entered the wilderness of Sinai 1 month after their departure from Mitzrayim. Soon the lack of food made them wish that they had died among the luxuries of Egypt, the great luxuries of Egypt. God made it known that he would cause bread to rain from the heavens for them and would test whether they would obey his law. Because we are tested with poverty, we're tested also with opulence. We're tested when we have too much. And now they don't even have to work for the bread. It comes from heaven. Evening, migratory birds called the quails came to the camp, and in this way the people were provided with meat. In the morning the ground was covered with mun, in English it's called manna, which had the taste of whatever the consumer desired. Pizza, falafel, filet mignon, whatever it is you wish, that's what the mun tasted like. The Bnei Yisrael were commanded to gather no more than an omer, which is about less than 4 pints, of man per person every day. However, on the sixth day, Erev Shabbos, a double portion was to be gathered to provide food for Shabbos as well. Because on Shabbos you don't have to do any work, you cannot go out and collect the manna, the man on Shabbos. And an omer of manna was placed in an earthenware pot kept before the ark in the Mishkan as a testimonial to God's kindness. At Rephidim, which lay further south, the people again quarreled with Moshe, complaining of a lack of water. No matter what they get, it doesn't seem to be enough, and they're belly aching again. Of course, we think that, they're complaining so much. I've made my bracha already. We think they're overly complaining, but we have to really be down the chafschos, to be out in the wilderness, no protection, and you have thirst. It's an unbelievable fear.